Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of BAME OT UK's podcast. So, this evening, I have with me some very eminent OTs who all have a Caribbean heritage. So, I have these people with me tonight to discuss the forthcoming book that we hope is going to be out around springtime. And the title of the book is Caribbean Perspectives on Occupational Therapy in the United Kingdom. So I'm going to ask my participants this evening all about this book, why it was needed, how the idea was born, and what's so great about this book. So let's start with Blaine. Blaine, I want you to tell me a story. Where did all of this begin and why was it needed?
Hi, Joe, and good evening, everyone. Well, firstly, uh, a conversation like this wouldn't do real justice without thinking about our parents, our grandparents. You know, we call them the Windrush generation. A group of people that came from the islands as British subjects after World War II. And so you could say it began with their journey. For the occupational therapist, however, the central figure of all of this has to be Odette Richardson, the first chair of Council of Caribbean Heritage, and head OT from head occupational therapist from Newcastle, who's been a really quiet mentor to all of us in her own quiet and humble way. And she basically had a meeting with me one day, a social gathering up in her hometown, and said, Blaine, I think it's time. I think we're ready to just write a book. And that's all she needed to say. It was a small note. And then I said, yeah, we can get this done. And went away and sketched some ideas down, even more, developed it. And then before we knew it, we had support from the Royal College of Occupational Therapy, who, for a Black History Month edition, we put out a call that coincided with the 75th anniversary of the Windrush generation's arrival to this country. And from there, a whole snowball of support came from all over the country. And occupational therapists got in touch. And then we started to have evening meetings and weekend meetings.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's it.
Brilliant, thank you. My apologies. I should have got you to introduce yourself. So as we go round, please introduce yourself. So Blaine, tell us a little bit about your background, please, and what you do at the moment.
I'm an occupational therapist, qualified in 1994 at the London School of Occupational Therapy, now Brunel University. And I had a range of experiences, both in NHS settings, orthopedics, medicine for the elderly, intermediate care, rehabilitation, adult social care, working in social services, eventually climbing up to become a team manager and one-time service manager. Studied independently, got all my higher education qualifications through part-time evening study, self-funded, and made a segue move from adult social care into higher education,
Oh,
working in such places as South Essex College, and then eventually at Leeds, and now involved in research projects as far as Sunderland University, Newcastle University, and now King's College University. So I'm involved in research, I'm involved in practice like OTs with long-standing history. We've got our fingers in all sorts of pies now. But I'd like to say that I'm really a writer now. I'm a
right.
researcher and I'm a writer as well as a practitioner.
Wow, what a journey. Thank
Mhm.
you. So we have some of the participants, or some of the writers and authors, I should say, of the new book with us as well. Um, so Blaine, just give us a quick rundown. How did you reach out to the different authors and writers? How did they become involved and how did you know of them? So you talked about the fact you put a call out in the
OT
OT
News,
News.
OT News, yep, yep.
Yes, okay.
Tracy Samuels, the editor, was very helpful. And then we got support from the Elizabeth Cason Trust. They were really good support. But like Small Legion, my favorite movie is Spartacus. Sorry for that imagery. That movie made 1950s with Kirk Douglas. You know, a whole legion of, dare I say it, captives. And they stood up and they formed their own garrison and they swept the country. I kind of like the elements of that. We swept the country. People like
It sounds
Leah, people like Sherlyn, people like Rachel who'd introduced themselves have become really brilliant friends from as far north as Liverpool, as far south as Portsmouth, Southampton. You know, we're proud of that national reach that we've had, and even OTs in Scotland and Trinidad as well.
brilliant. So it sounds like there was a answer to your call to arms.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. So let's introduce and meet the other authors here with us tonight. Um, Sherlyn, I'm going to go straight into it with you. So introduce yourselves to us, to the audience, but also tell me a little bit about what was the writing journey like for you, and how have you found it?
Hi, I'm Sherlyn. I am an occupational therapist and I work for Hertfordshire County Council in the enablement team. I've been there since 2015, um, and it's been quite an interesting journey working for the council. It was quite a steep learning curve, but I've come through that now and it's amazing. So, with regards to the writing and getting involved and things, I remember speaking to Blaine about it and some other people, and I thought it was a really necessary thing because working in Hertfordshire is predominantly white, so I don't have a lot of people of color that I work with, and I've always thought about how people would treat people of color when with regards to like their care and things like that, and you know looking at elderly people and what sort of things they like to eat and like things that they possibly wouldn't get, even like hair washing and those sorts of things. So I've always kind of thought about those things. So when I was asked to be involved, I thought, oh yeah, those are a few things that I could probably touch on or think about in the writing. So it was really good because I work in social care. My chapter is around social care, and yeah, how it all like intertwines and things like that, and along with like care packages and enablement and preventative services and things, from like a Black or Caribbean perspective.
Mm,
So yeah, it was really good. It was more relative. It wasn't kind of like uh, theoretical. It was real
mm,
because we had like real people that we were talking about
mm.
and reflecting on in the writing, and being able to think about reflective questions at the end of a chapter and how that would fit in and things. And I covered some of my own journey within that chapter as well. So the overall writing was really good, really reflective. And I kind of wanted to write more, but then obviously you had a word limit and things like that. So yeah, and obviously working with like other professionals like Suyini, she's a social worker, and Yvonne, who is like one of the managers in a different council. So us all coming together, um, and just like making this thing. So yeah, it was amazing. It was great.
Sounds like you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely a
Brilliant.
writer.
Wow. So some new discovered meaningful occupation for you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. Let me
Well,
ask,
I'm gonna step in quickly though,
yeah.
because something I always point out to Shirley is that she was one of the first occupational therapists to write a discourse around anti-racism of Caribbean heritage. She's one of the first, and I've been around for a while. And this was a collaboration she did with Anita, who's a service manager or lecturer. She's got some links in Hertfordshire, hasn't she, Shirley? There was
Um,
a social work
Tanya
textbook.
Moore, Tanya
Annie
Moore.
Moore, that's it. Yeah, Tanya
She,
Moore.
yeah, she was
Mm,
the head of social
mm,
work at the time, and yeah, my chapter was with
mm,
another
mm,
occupational therapist. Yeah,
mm.
So that was actually that was my first bit of writing, which did
mm,
kind of spur me on to actually want to
mm,
be a part of this one.
mm,
But then
mm,
yeah,
Mhm.
this is a bit different. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Um, I'm going to ask Leah to introduce yourself. So, same question to you, Leah, in terms of what has the writing journey kind of looked like for you. But in addition, can you, from what I understand, the book is also is a bit of a practice manual, and Shirley mentioned. There are reflective questions
Mhm.
at the end of chapters and things like that. So, tell us a bit about you, what you contributed, and how did you go about, I suppose, identifying what types of reflective questions you chose to put in, and maybe why? What was the importance of that for you?
Yeah, so hi everybody, my name's Leah Berry. I am a registered occupational therapist. My specialism has always been in mental health services, so whether that be communities, secure units, medium secure, low secure, locked rehab, perinatal mental health, anything you name it, CAMS services. That was my background. So I studied in Northampton, but my time of service, as you would put it, has been on my home stomping ground in Birmingham. And that's the kind of population that I've served. So very diverse in terms of cultural background, but very diverse socioeconomically as well.
Mm.
Um, so I guess my involvement in the project has been quite interesting. So Odeth had connected with me a few years before this project had started, and a call out to try and find occupational therapies who were in senior leadership positions. And we realized that at the level we were working within, we were maybe one of three or four that we
Wow.
could find in the UK at the time within that kind of NHS space. So we'd connected, and like everyone had said, she'd been such a mentor to me in terms of having that space to talk to and support each other. And then when the opportunity came to be a part of this book, it was a no-brainer, of course. I guess the experience, so I definitely feel like a writer. I think that's one of my identities, but a different style as opposed to academic. I'm very much a storyteller, and a lot of my passion over the past couple of years, yes, I'm an occupational therapist, but I've also dabbled in systemic family therapy and in Black psychology and African centered practice. And what that has brought out in me is that desire to tell the story. So my angle, and very well supported by Blaine to just take that angle, and be who I am in that, was to tell the story of my grandparents and their journey from Jamaica, from all different parts of Jamaica over to the UK, and what that meant for my occupational identity. And their occupational needs and my occupational needs as well. And I guess that first chapter maybe sets some of the precedent for some of the questions we then go on to ask in each of the chapters. So each chapter we will go back to occupational needs and also give what we've named as occupational gifts. So this is something that we're not just asking of people to reflect on, but either a piece of knowledge or practice, or something from our heritage that can help, and can also be of use to people's well-being, whether it's things like reasoning or bush tea. There's so many different examples of us explaining what these things are, not just for patients, but also for people as well as occupational therapists, and leaning into that idea of back to our basics of occupation for well-being, all throughout.
Wow, thank you. I can't wait to read the book now. It sounds like it's so relatable. Sometimes academic books can be quite dry, but
Mm-hmm.
this sounds like something that actually, you can almost like a storybook, maybe imagine characters. It feels as though you're going to be able to evoke situations and maybe relate that then
Yeah.
to situations maybe that you have in your background, or whether that's a personal or a work kind of point of view. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm raring to read this book, definitely.
And you won't need to imagine, Joe, because there are case studies all the way through. So these are
Right,
case studies that are based on people's practice. In some cases, they're case studies where people have given permission for their
right.
stories to be told as well. So, that element of storytelling is all the way through.
And I really like the sound of that, because I think whether you're of a Caribbean or African background, and just generally part of the diaspora, storytelling, I think, is such a large part of so many people's background, not necessarily written down information, but this passing over, this handing down of knowledge that you get from the elders or from other people around you. And that's what it's making me think of. So yeah, I really want to hear the book. So, sorry, to read the book. Rachel, how has things been for you? So, yeah, please tell us a bit more about you, how you got involved, and what you contributed to the book.
Oh, hi there. Good evening, everybody. Really, really great to hear everybody's um, thoughts on the book as well, and it's really made me understand the journey that we've been on. So yeah, so I'm Rachel Stonall, and I'm based up. I live in Chester, but I'm based at Liverpool University. So I work as an occupational therapy lecturer at the University of Liverpool. So I've really I come from Lancashire in the north of England, and kind of feel like I've got to hold that flag for the north of England. Um, and I trained at Ripon and York St John, so did stay up in the north as well. And then my first post was in Chester, and I've stayed in Chester. So I've worked in both mental health settings, and then specialised in actually hand therapy. So working in rheumatology and hand therapy. And then from that, there were some opportunities to do some guest lecturing at different universities. And then I came into that route of academia. So I suppose from my perspective, once I've started in academia, I've then become involved in looking at BAME from a perspective of the lecturers. So looking at, well, not just lecturers, staff at the University of Liverpool. So I'm the co-chair of the BAME staff network. So I suppose that kind of understanding of occupational justice I've brought into my role from a wider perspective now at the University of Liverpool. But what was great was how I came to come into working on the book was actually through a student who had seen in the OT news, and she was talking about it. And so unfortunately she wasn't in a position to participate herself, but she was a great advocate to talk about it with the students and staff here at the University of Liverpool. So that was really brilliant, and so then came on board, and it's been a really great experience to listen to others, learn from other people, and experience, I suppose, different ways of working as well, which I really liked. The connection with people, even though we're all over the country, and as Blaine's saying, not even just the UK, we've got further afield as well. And that's been really great to get a sense of community. Because I suppose I was reflecting on my own journey, and when I was training, I qualified in 2000, but in my training, I didn't actually have either a lecturer or a practice placement educator who was Black. So actually, it's made me reflect perhaps on our students' journeys as well, and that sense of community and connection. And it's great that, as we're saying, we're sharing stories within the book, and hopefully that'll enable people to feel a sense of connection, and that connection hopefully will galvanize the community as well, because which is really something I'm an advocate for.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves and telling us about the book in a bit more detail. I suppose one of the questions that I have is, what is the writing process like? How does that come about? Do you lock yourself away in the turret of your house, and, you're typing away on your laptop, and you don't let yourself come out until you've finished that A4 piece of paper and before you move on to the next one? Or is it more collaborative? What does it look like? Shirley, do you want to maybe start us off on that?
Yeah, for me, it was more like telling a story. So it was really easy because I was talking about myself, my experiences, what it looked like, and things like that. So I do find writing about myself or experiences quite easy, because even though it is like a form of textbook, I feel that I'm not using that kind of academic language, in like big
Yeah.
fancy words. So it was really easy for me to just say what I've been doing, So
Mm.
yeah, I don't think I really had any like writer's blocks or anything like that, because I think if someone asks you to write about what you do, for me, it's much easier. If you ask me to tell you what I do, I'm like, oh, what do I do? How do I do that? But writing, you have the time to kind of think, pen to
Mm.
paper and things like that. So it was
Yeah.
relatively easy for me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's good. Leah, I saw you agreeing there with Sherlyn. What was the process like for you?
Yeah, I think and I may have said this to the group before, like I was thankful when this opportunity came up because I almost felt like I had so much to say and nowhere to put it. So I had so many reflections about practice and what it meant to be a Black occupational therapist from a Caribbean background and what that has meant in so many different spaces, but didn't have anywhere to put it or a forum to kind of hinge it on. And being a part of this group, like Bear mentioned, we've had features on OT News and in other spaces. It's really given me that channel to put it somewhere,
Mm.
and then to have the input from Dr. Blaine, from Odeth, from so many other people who are in those academic spaces, which I haven't had that exposure to. So to be able to learn from them and explore different styles potentially of writing in some areas, or
Yeah.
to put kind of my strengths and their strengths together has been fantastic. Um, if there has been a block, I find kind of late night, the middle of the night, a really nice time to write when everything outside is quiet, and I can just zone in. But I do remember us having evening sessions as a group, and we'd invite someone to sing a song or to play music, or we had prof with us who would recite a poetry segment or something that would ground us in our culture. So then it
Mhm.
was a lot easier to then launch into writing what we needed to do after that session.
Right. Okay. Rachel, what was the purpose of those group sessions together? So, did actual writing come out? Was that the end product of doing the group sessions, or it was more about connection? What was that about, and how did you find that?
Yeah, I think there was definitely a sense of connection and grounding, and I think that was really important as well for us to maybe share some of our vulnerabilities. So perhaps that idea definitely, think some many of us have discussed about feeling a bit of imposter syndrome as well, about how we were feeling about giving our message to other people, and that were we experts in that particular field. And actually I think that's been really beneficial to talk about that journey and to talk about how we've got a voice, and talking about our experiences are really, really valuable. And I feel that that's something that I'm definitely going to take away, and be an advocate to other people, like the students that I work with, for instance. Share your stories. It's really, really important.
Mm.
I think there's something else to add a little bit as well about accountability, because all of us have got different responsibilities, and there's different times in this journey. I've used that word again, when there's hotspots for us for different reasons. And I suppose that's been really helpful to have that support network of the community, but also a sense of accountability. So perhaps if it had been me working independently, I may at times have pushed it aside, because of other
Yeah.
pressures. But actually, it was helpful to have those dates and to have cheerleaders,
Mm.
putting us to work together to get across the line. And because we were sharing chapters, the chapter I'm in, we've shared this, a few of us as authors, and I think that's been really great as well, because we were accountable to each other, and so I found that really helpful. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. It sounds like it was obviously something that um, kind of kept you going and was a really sort of warming experience, and new connections and friendships, I'm sure, must have, come out of that. Totally. Blaine, I wanted to ask you, so let's say there are, for our audience out there who maybe have similar ideas around wanting to, maybe write something, whether that's OT related or something else. What would be your advice maybe around, just getting started? How would you approach this?
Okay, I think there are three elements come to mind for me. Writing as meaningful occupation for people who want to do something as a main leisure time
Mm,
occupation. And OT, occupational therapy, has a grounding in that. When you look at our mental health backgrounds, working in therapeutic groups, so we can take time out to have wellness sessions for ourselves. So there's that type of expression. And
yeah.
out of this, ODEF has published a book of poetry. We have another member, Professor Stephen, who has written several small biographies. So through the technology today, you can do a lot of self-publishing now. The
Mm,
technology is out there. So there's
yeah.
one strand. All right. We're geared at filling the bookshelves with um, um, how could I say it? Intellectual, scholarly um, discourse
Hmm.
that's hewn, that's part of our Caribbean ancestry. The occupational therapy bookshelves are replete. There's nothing there when it comes to this. And
Yeah.
so this is the beginning of the sowing the seeds of for future scholarship,
Mm,
because we want people coming into the profession to look at the bookshelves and not say the classic one-liner, and more research needs to be done.
yeah.
So through the networks, through people like, Rachel's students, we want any student who has an interest in Afro-Caribbean type research to draw on our book and say, hi, I'd like to collaborate with
Mhm.
Blaine. I'd like to collaborate with Leah because they work in this
Yeah.
setting. Could we do a scoping review study with them? We want rapid production now
Right.
of Caribbean research written about us, written by us.
Yeah.
Because
Wonderful.
up to now, in the last 100 years of the occupational therapies movement, roughly, approximately, this is the first book written by over 30 people of African Caribbean ancestry. The first
Yeah.
one, cover to cover, chapter to chapter. It's been long overdue. The fire behind it has been what governments have done to victimize our elders, which was known as the Windrush scandal. That's really
Mm,
it. The
right.
lowest hanging fruit in terms of migration,
Hmm.
to fulfill targets for migration. The lowest hanging fruit are people with a pigmentation like ours, whose papers didn't seem organized, and
Yeah.
mass deportations and non-entry. That's been the fire.
Right.
And so through this writing, we recognize our inner activism, our inner drive to resist injustice, but in our academic, subtle way. The book hasn't been a
Mm,
book about anti-racism per se, but it's a natural element that is born within us because of our heritage. And so it doesn't come out explicitly, but
mm,
as the book gets louder and louder towards the end, writers have opened up and said, "Listen, I've experienced racism in the profession," uh, and in different people's biographies, that's the beginning of a starting point. At the last chapter, I ask the audience, look at some of the research, look at a research paper, and give us an idea of how we could have improved it. And this is a paper that I've had rejected 3 or 4 times by a well-known journal. So I've put it in as the last chapter. Do you blame me? Have a look,
not at all.
audience. Have a look yourself. We're not going to reject our own because it's like rejecting one of our children. Have a look
Right.
and tell us how you think we could have improved it. So that particular chapter, I won't give too much away. It's saying, hey, here's nearly 800 studies, exaggerate, and only two studies talk about one or two Afro-Caribbean people in a whole volume of the British Journal in its
Yeah.
history. We
Okay.
need to be more visible, we need to be more present. So this is a drive to get the discipline present with text about our people, because otherwise we will be invisible to the bookshelves, invisible to the scholarly space, and invisible to the credibility of what we have to offer as academic colleagues.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's an urgency.
I hear that. I hear that.
Mhm.
I also hear that to me it sounds as though leaving a legacy. We're starting to, like you say, make our presence known here and now in the present, but also we need to leave a legacy for those who follow. So, as we wrap up and bringing this to a close, I suppose I would ask you, Leah, in terms of final thoughts, what do you want the readers to take away from this book?
I think the core of everything we do, that idea of Ubuntu I am because we are. So this has been a collective experience, a collective journey. And in order to embed the key messages that we've put in the book, we need to do it as a collective. We need to be connecting our students together. We need to be connecting as practitioners across the UK to think about, how can we put these things into practice? The book, and we should have said this at the beginning, maybe goes from a developmental order of kind of cradle to grave approach. So there is
Right.
something at every stage of the life cycle
Mm,
from a Caribbean perspective, which I think is just profound. It's really exciting. But in order to implement those things, form community, get a journal club together and focus on a chapter each month. Um, Move through it, think about what you want to change in your area of work, what you want to change in your community, maybe from those things. So for clinicians, for students, for managers, for scholars, there's something for everyone for each stage that we address within occupational therapy.
brilliant. Thank you. Sherlyn, what would be your final thoughts? What do you want your readers to be able to take from this book?
For me, I think it's more about, like you said, the visibility and awareness. I think it's so important to be aware of things that your people are just not aware of. I feel like opening this book is going to help people to open their eyes to so many things that they just never have thought about.
Mm,
At all levels, whether it's like you said, a student or a manager or something to that effect. Because obviously, going through cradle to grave, you're going to have so many different departments within occupational therapy. So that could be a multitude of people, of all levels. So yeah, for me, it's absolutely an awareness. And I the sort of person I just love to promote Black positivity. So for me, it's just that is it. Yeah.
thank you. And Rachel, what is it for you? What do you want your readers to take away from this book?
Yeah, I suppose I'm echoing both Shirley and Leah to saying, the idea of empowerment and to think about what we shared our stories, what's your story, and also thinking about sharing this with others. So as we've all said, if this is something that you could share in journal clubs or with your practice placement educator or with other students, ensuring that we're sharing this story with others is probably the legacy from the book I would like to see.
Brilliant. Thank you. So as we wrap up, I have to say thank you to all of you, to Sherlyn, to Leah, to Blaine, and to Rachel for joining me tonight and for so eloquently describing this forthcoming book. All I can really say is everybody look out for the book. Once again, the title is Caribbean Perspectives on Occupational Therapy in the United Kingdom. Keep your eyes peeled. Follow BAME UK. We will definitely be promoting it out there on the social media channels. And guys, when you have it, when you read it, make sure you applaud, make sure you share your opinions, because we are starting to build a legacy. This is the beginning. So thank you once again, and join me next time on our next episode.